Unlike the others who were happily exiting the company premises the moment it was closing hour, Lucy felt like a kid who had been separated from her favorite toy. She didn't like that she was leaving the building without any document to work on at home. How was she supposed to pass her spare time? Maybe she needed to find a bookstore and get herself some books to read, and maybe she could also stop by a grocery store and stock her refrigerator, Lucy thought as she stepped out of the building and looked around the parking lot for her official car and driver. Almost immediately, she saw the car drive in her direction at full speed, and then it screeched to a stop right in front of her. She frowned as she wondered what was wrong with Tom since almost everyone else was looking in their direction now. Her eyes rounded in surprise and her mouth almost dropped open when Tom stepped out of the car looking like he had just stepped out of the front cover of a Playgirl magazine. Who was this mouth-watering, butterfly-giving, toes-curling handsome hunk in front of her? Where was her driver? Although her driver had been very attractive in a manly way, the person before her looked attractive in a very boyish and dangerous way. His previously black hair, which used to be slicked back, was now a curly copper-brown short mid-skin fade. He had a silver nose ring on the right part of his nose, and 2 diamond earrings on both his ears. Although her driver had made her feel uncomfortable, he had been safe unlike the person in front of her now, she thought, as she listened to the collective appreciative gasp which came from some of the other ladies around. Who is this hottie? One of the ladies asked, is he her boyfriend? Someone else asked, isn't this the guy at the cafeteria earlier today? Another lady asked, is he? He looks so different and handsome. The second lady said. Tom winked at the ladies who were huddled in a corner staring at him, before turning to look at Lucy. Are you ready to leave, ma'am? He drawled with a crooked smile. Did he just ma'am her? Don't tell me he is her driver? The first lady asked. It seems so. He doesn't look like a driver, the second lady said in a loud whisper. Jade had been right. Although women did not like to admit it, they were naturally attracted to bad boys as an ant was drawn to sugar. From the moment the hairstylist had finished dyeing and styling his hair, and he had gotten his nose and ear piercings, he had noticed that almost every lady he walked past turned to look at him. It hadn't helped that his stylist had suggested he roll up his sleeve and undo a few more buttons if he wanted to really play the bad boy. Seeing the appreciative glint in Lucy's eyes now, he knew he was on the right track. Tom mused, ma'am? He drawled, leaning closer to Lucy so she would focus. Lucy snapped out of her daze as her eyes focused on his face, and she regretted it immediately she met his beautiful hazel eyes looking at her with a glint of amusement in them. She felt her mouth go dry and blinked at him in confusion. We should leave, she suggested as she quickly reached for the doorknob at the same time as him. She withdrew her hand immediately their fingers touched, and it was all Tom could do not to chuckle as he held open the door for her to get in. Lucy hurried inside the back seat of the car and sat down. She took off her glasses and fanned her face with her hands as she tried to compose herself before he would join her in the car. Was she really attracted to him? Perhaps it was because he was the first person she had slept with? Maybe it was time to get that dildo as planned. You finished early today, Tom observed as he got into his seat. Lucy cleared her throat. Yeah, she said without bothering to offer any explanation. She reached into her handbag and took out her glass case, and then used the microfiber cloth to clean the lens of her glass before wearing it again. If you don't mind, I would like us to stop at a bookstore or a grocery store. I'd like to shop for some time before going home, so you can just drop me off and leave, she said without looking at the rearview mirror which she knew he was using to watch her. Perfect then. I need to shop for groceries too, so maybe we can shop together, Tom said with a grin as he turned on the car ignition. And reversed, Lucy noticed that he waved at the ladies who were still standing there as he drove away. Did he always give every lady his attention? He had also been looking at the twins earlier this morning, and thinking back now she remembered he had also been the one to offer to be her one-night stand. Perhaps he was a philanderer? Had he used a condom when they had sex? Did she need to go and run tests for sexually transmitted infections or diseases? She wondered with a frown. How could she bring herself to ask him if he had used protection? What if he had come inside her? Lucy thought in alarm as she suddenly sat up on her seat. Why hadn't she thought of that before? She hadn't even bothered to get herself any pill. Is there a problem? Tom asked when he noticed her sudden movement through the rearview mirror and saw how pale she looked. I'm okay, she said with a shake of her head as she quickly fished her phone out of her bag and clicked on her period tracker app to see if she was safe. She sighed in relief when she realized that her ovulation day had passed over 5 days ago. Of course, I wouldn't have been that careless, she murmured to herself as she dropped the phone on the empty seat beside her and relaxed her back against the seat before closing her eyes. Lucy was startled by the sudden vibration and sound of her ringtone. She picked it up and smiled when she realized it was her dad. "Hey, handsome." She greeted with a wide smile, making Tom look at her through the rearview mirror. "Handsome?" he mused. "How is my princess doing?" Her father asked with a grin. "It's barely 2 days and I miss you already," Lucy complained with a pout. "We miss you too, but we are glad you're on your own now. Maybe you'd finally meet a decent young man out there and stop being such a workaholic," her father said, making her roll her eyes. "Here I was thinking you were proud of me for not bringing you any trouble," she said dryly. "Of course we are proud of you. But we also want you to get a man. By the way, I saw a picture of your bestie and Brian Hanks." "I had no idea she was going out with a celebrity," her mother responded before her father could say anything. "It's a recent development," Lucy said, not wanting to give her parents the details since it was Sonia's private business. "I see. So what about you? Have you met anyone?" her mother asked curiously. "She barely got there 2 days ago. How is she supposed to meet anyone in such a short time?" her father asked, and Lucy smiled as she pictured the frown on his face. "Have you met your neighbors? Do you have good neighbors? What about your colleagues at the office? I hope they are nice," her father asked in concern, making Lucy glance at the rearview mirror to see Tom looking at her with interest. "It is still too early to tell. But don't worry, I'm okay," she assured them. "All right, pumpkin. We love you. Call us if you need anything." "Okay," her father said. "Sure I will. Love you too, and make sure you get a boyfriend, I want." Lucy giggled when she heard the disconnect tone. She was sure they were going to bicker now since her father had deliberately hung up before her mother could complete what she wanted to say. "Boyfriend?" Tom asked curiously. "What?" Lucy asked in confusion, and then replayed her entire conversation with her parents in her head, and realized it had sounded like she had been talking with her boyfriend. She was almost tempted to answer in the affirmative, but she knew she was a bad liar and wouldn't be able to keep up, so she shook her head instead. "I'm not interested in guys." "That was my father," she said, making him raise a brow. Although Tom was relieved that the person she had just spoken with was her father, he was sidetracked by the first statement. "You prefer girls?" he asked with a slightly raised brow, making her lips curve in amusement. "No. I prefer my own company," she pointed out. The first question that entered his mind was to ask her if she meant she preferred to masturbate, but because she was a virgin and he knew she was a good girl, that didn't seem appropriate to him. "Does that mean you are sexually attracted to men but you just don't want a relationship?" Tom asked casually. "Why are you asking?" Lucy asked cautiously. "Because we are friends, and I'm trying to know you," he reminded her, making her look away guiltily. If he found out she had almost cost him his job, he wouldn't refer to her as a friend, Lucy thought. "Yeah, I'm just not interested in a relationship," she said with a sigh. "Why not? Do I need to have a reason? I'm content with being alone. I just want to be a career lady," she said with a shrug. "That's okay then." "We are here," Tom said, making her look through the window as he drove into the parking lot of a grocery shop and parked the car. "It's past work hours now, so you don't have to wait for me. You can leave," Lucy told him. "That means I've switched from being your driver to your friend." "So you have to treat me as a friend now," Tom said with a wink, making her wonder if he truly had personality problems. How could he easily switch from one personality to another? Had he forgotten that they were friends last night before he talked to her so rudely? "Come on, Lou, let's go," Tom said with a grin as he held out his arm for her to take it, making her decide that he truly had personality problems. What did he really want from her? Or perhaps she was thinking too much about it, without waiting for her to make up her mind. Tom grabbed her arm and placed it in the crook of his arm before leading her towards the grocery shop. "So aside from your father and twin brother, are there any other very important male figures in your life?" Tom asked in a casual tone as he led her inside the grocery shop. Although Lucy still wasn't comfortable with the whole thing yet, she decided to play along with him. Sure. I have a really close childhood friend called Tyler, she said as she observed the way other ladies were looking in their direction. She wasn't one to like unnecessary attention, and Tom was really drawing a lot of attention to her. Can I ask you a question? Lucy asked as they both stopped at the place they were to pick up the shopping basket or trolley they wanted. Shoot, Tom gave her go-ahead as he picked a trolley, and then she picked one too. Why did you decide to change your style? She asked, looking him over this time since she had been avoiding staring at him since they got out of the car. Tom thought about it for a moment. You want to know the truth? Were you supposed to lie? There is this girl I'm really into. My sister thinks she might be into this sort of thing, so I'm trying to get her attention, Tom said with a grin as he started pushing the trolley. What better way to confuse her than this? Lucy was very tempted to ask him who the girl was and if she was the girl. But she knew that would be a very presumptuous thing to do. And she didn't want to embarrass herself by thinking too highly of herself, so she simply nodded. I see, so as a friend, tell me something. Which do you prefer? My former looks, or this one? Lucy pursed her lips as she considered his question. He really seemed easygoing, and it was obvious he was trying to make her relax and be friendly towards him. She didn't want to seem standoffish or appear as though she was looking down on him, so for that reason, she decided to play along. Well, I can't exactly tell which I prefer, since both seem to pass a different message. I think it basically depends on who you are on the inside, she said, tapping the left side of her chest to demonstrate that she meant his heart. Tom could guess she was trying to avoid giving a direct answer. Who do you think I am on the inside? He asked her curiously. Lucy shrugged. I'm not sure about that yet. Once I'm sure I will let you know, she promised as she rolled her basket trolley to the chocolate section ahead of them and started picking some Bounty chocolates and dropping them into her basket. Tom followed suit, but he picked only a couple of Bounty chocolates and more of Twix, Snickers, Dairy Milk, and Mars chocolates. Okay. Tell me something though, what kind of guy is your ideal guy? A bad boy or a gentleman? He asked, making her brow pull together in a frown as she adjusted her glasses on the bridge of her nose. No offense, but I don't happen to be the girl you are trying to impress, am I? Tom raised a brow arrogantly. Why would you think that? No offense, but you're not my type. I mean, you're pretty and seem smart all right, but... He let his words trail off as he looked at her from head to toe and then shook his head. Lucy tried not to wince at the sound of that. Of course, she could understand him. Maybe the Lucy he had met at the club that first night was his type, but not this one. He probably wouldn't have spared her a second glance or even offered to be her one-night stand had she gone there in her real state. What had she been thinking? She could hear the sound her deflated ego was making like a punctured balloon. Fair enough, since you're not my type either, she said with a stiff smile as she pushed her trolley away from him, in the direction of fruits and vegetables. Tom hurried after her, ignoring the ladies who were looking at him like he was a walking meal. I didn't ask whether or not I was your type. I only asked what your type is. Bad boy or gentleman? He asked, much to her irritation. Neither. I don't have a type. I already told you I'm not interested in men, Lucy said through gritted teeth. Tom tried not to smile as he stood beside her and picked fresh vegetables. So you don't have a type? Now I wonder why you were so keen on pointing out that I wasn't your type when you don't even have a type, Tom said, making her turn to look at him irritably. I prefer to shop quietly. You're distracting me, she said and started to move away from him. Tom sighed. You know what? I'm no longer going to try to be friendly with you since you keep making it clear that you don't want me around you. First thing tomorrow morning I'm going to submit my resignation letter at the office and give you the space you so much desire, Tom promised in a flat tone which made her heart skip multiple beats as she turned around to look at him. She stiffened when she remembered what Harry had said about being nice to her driver. She noticed he was really moving his trolley away from her. Where was he going to? Was he mad at her? Was he going to quit being her driver because she wanted to shop quietly? If this had happened yesterday, she would have been over the moon. But him quitting his job now would mean she was going to lose hers, and she couldn't let that happen. Wait. I'm sorry, she called out as he knew she would, but Tom didn't respond but instead, he kept moving his trolley away from her. What? Tom asked when Lucy hurried after him and stepped in front of him blocking his path with her trolley. I'm sorry. I was not trying to be rude, she said with an awkward apologetic smile. It's okay. I'm not mad. I just think it's best if I don't work for you anymore. We can just remain good neighbors, Tom assured her with a stiff smile and started to reverse his trolley when she grabbed onto it. No. Please, I need you. She yelled and then winced when the other people around glanced in their direction curiously. She lowered her voice. I don't mean I need you in that way. I mean I want you to keep working for me. You need the job, remember? I'm not sure I would be able to sleep well at night knowing I cost a man his job, she said earnestly, making him almost believe her. He would have believed her completely had he not known she was actually trying to save her own job. This woman was a really good liar, after all. Maybe she ought to be in the marketing unit instead of the fashion unit. You don't have to worry or feel guilty. I already made up my mind that driving isn't really what I want to do. I'd just return to my handyman job instead, he assured her, but she didn't budge. If you quit this way, I would really be sad. I promise to be nice, polite, and even friendly henceforth. So please don't go. Please? She said as she let go of his trolley and grabbed his arm instead, giving him puppy eyes through her glasses. I don't think you know what I think? That girl you like is going to fall flat for you, whoever she is. Lucy said, knowing he would be distracted by that. You think so? Tom asked with a grin, since she was referring to herself even though she didn't know it yet, of course. And as your friend, neighbor, and boss, it is my duty to help you win her heart. You have nothing to worry about. I may not be very experienced when it comes to relationships, but I can definitely give you tips on how to win a lady's heart. She said with a grin, which he returned. So will you keep working for me? I promise to be good to you henceforth. No more being rude and unfriendly, no more. She crossed both hands in front of her chest. You would come out with me whenever I'm bored? He asked, wanting to drive a hard bargain since he had the chance to do so. Lucy paused to ponder on it when she remembered that she would be having a lot of spare time on her hand now that her boss had brought that crazy policy about not taking work home. Can't we just chill indoor? We could do that sometimes and go out at other times, Tom said, and she nodded. You promise to help me get the girl? He asked. And she bobbed her head. The day you go back on your word, I'm going to quit my job. Agreed? He asked, and she nodded in agreement. Deal, she said as she let go of his arm and extended her hand for a handshake. Deal, Tom said as he shook her hand. This was going to be really easy and interesting. And maybe she didn't know it yet, but he just won the challenge about getting her to leave the house, he thought as he flashed her a smile. As long as he was interested in someone else and not her, this was going to be as easy as a stroll in a park. Being friendly and hanging out with a friend once in a while wasn't a big deal, right? Lucy mused as she returned his smile. Lucy stared at Tom with a slightly raised brow when she opened her door and saw him standing there, dressed in a pair of blue jeans trousers and a black polo t-shirt that showed off his muscled arms. You're going somewhere, not just me. We are going out. I want us to hang out, Tom said with a harmless smile as he let his eyes roam over her body. She was barefooted, and unlike most ladies he knew, her toenails were not painted. She was wearing an oversized long-sleeved top on black leggings trousers. And as usual, her hair was tied in a bun and her glasses were sitting on the bridge of her nose. Seeing the way he was looking at her now, Lucy was glad she was properly dressed. She made a mental note to always put on decent clothes so he wouldn't have to catch her unaware. But we only just got in 2 hours ago. Why do you want to go out again? Lucy asked wearily as she adjusted her glasses. She didn't want to leave the comfort of her bed or drop the book she just started reading, because I'm bored and I want to hang out with you. Come on, go in and get dressed so we can leave. Remember you promised to hang out with me and give me tips on how to win my lady's heart? Tom asked, cocking his head to the side. Can't we just do that tomorrow? She asked, and when she saw his frown she shook her head quickly. How about you just come in instead, and we talk? We don't have to go out. You could tell me everything I need to know about her, and then I can give you every tip you need to win her. Let's just stay indoors, okay? I even have snacks and beer, Lucy offered. No. Besides, you need to go out. You are new around here and don't know many places around, so I think it's best I take you out so you can see some cool places. That is what a nice friend and neighbor should do. So go inside and get dressed. Don't keep me waiting, Tom said, using his fingers to indicate for her to go ahead. Lucy felt like stomping her feet and yelling in frustration, but she knew she couldn't afford to do that in front of him since she had given him her word earlier, and they had an agreement. Instead, she gave him a stiff smile before holding out her door for him to get inside. Make yourself comfortable. I will join you soon, she said after shutting the door, and then headed for her bedroom. Tom lowered himself on one of the sofas as he looked around the house with interest. He noticed how neat and organized everything was. Even the books on her bookshelf were well arranged in such a way that none was sticking out. The black wooden center table was shining, and the china flower vase on it was sparkling. She seemed like a very meticulous person, and judging by all he had seen thus far, he could tell her personality trait was melancholy. I'm ready, Lucy announced without enthusiasm as she stepped out of her bedroom, dressed in a red turtleneck shirt and a pair of blue jeans trousers. With black loafers, I'm not sure. You should let down your hair. You look more beautiful when you wear it down, Tom said as he looked her over. I prefer it this way, Lucy said with a stiff smile. Tom sighed as he stood up from where he was seated on the couch and walked towards her. Lucy raised a curious brow as she watched him, and her heartbeat doubled when he stopped in front of her. Tom looked at her for a while as though he was contemplating something. Is there a reason you love wearing glasses instead of contact lenses? He asked as he held on to both edges of her glasses and slowly took them off so he could look into her face. I suppose I'm used to them. I feel more comfortable wearing glasses, Lucy said with a self-conscious smile as she extended her hand for him to hand over her glasses. Tom let his eyes linger on her face for a while. I see, Tom said with a nod as he handed the glasses to her. He had wanted to tamper with her hair and let it loose, but had changed his mind at the last minute. Rushing things wouldn't work with someone like her, and using force would not work either. He needed to take things slow and easy while also finding the right strategy to get her to do the things he wanted, and he knew just how to go about it now. Let's leave then, Tom said as he headed for the door, leaving her to follow him. Lucy let out the breath she hadn't realized she was holding as she put on her glasses. He had been standing too close for comfort, and for a moment she had thought he was going to do something. She shook her head to get rid of the silly thought and quickly picked up her phone, purse, and house keys from the table. She locked the door before quickening her pace to catch up with him. She needed to get started on helping him win his lady. The earlier she helped him get this lady in question, the better for her. At least he would pay her less attention once he got a girlfriend. That would make things between them less awkward, and she would finally be able to breathe freely around him. So what is her name? Lucy asked when she caught up with him close to the car. Her name? Whose name? He asked in false confusion as he tried to come up with a fancy name. The lady you like, of course. Or don't you know her name? Lucy asked, looking at him suspiciously. He cleared his throat awkwardly. Well, I don't know her name yet. Tom gave her a sheepish smile like he had just been caught. Maybe it was better this way. She would believe him more if she thought he was clueless about the lady he had feelings for. Lucy gave him a look of disbelief. You don't? How can you be doing all this to impress a lady whose name you don't even know? Do you even know if she is married or single? She asked incredulously. Wait, how did you even meet her if you don't know her name? Does she even know you exist? Lucy asked as she stood by the front passenger door and placed her elbows on the roof of the car so she could look at him. Tom took in a deep breath. Let's just stop talking about it, Tom suggested as he opened the car and got in. He needed time to think and come up with something reasonable. Lucy got into the car and looked at him. You don't want to talk about it? How can I help you if you don't tell me all the basic things I need to know? Go on, tell me how you met her, Lucy urged him, making the corners of his lips twitch in amusement. she seemed more relaxed and talkative with him now that she believed he was interested in someone else. He knew he would have to come up with a really good and believable story. Tom reasoned as he turned on the car's ignition and drove off. "I'm still waiting," Lucy reminded him after some time. Tom turned to spare her a glance before clearing his throat. "Okay. About 2 weeks ago someone referred me to her for a plumbing job. That was how I met her for the first time. I helped her fix her kitchen sink, which was clogged. I don't think she is married," Tom said confidently. "Oh. But shouldn't you know her name if you visited her home and worked for her?" Lucy asked thoughtfully. "I suppose I was too smitten by her beauty to remember to ask for her name. Or maybe she mentioned it, but I wasn't listening. I know where she works though," Tom added, making Lucy's ears perk up. "You do?" she asked with interest, and then cocked her head to one side as she narrowed her eyes at him suspiciously. "Don't tell me you have been stalking her." "Not exactly. Although, she was the reason I applied for a job at the company. She works there, but I don't know what department she works in so." Tom let the rest of his words trail off and shrugged. "Really?" Lucy asked, clearly surprised. So he had taken a job at the company because of a woman after all, but not because of her. It made sense. Why would he want to work as her driver if he was interested in her? And there was no way he could have applied for the job of a driver overnight in such a firm. Sonia was right. She had been too full of herself to the point of paranoia. His being her neighbor and driver was all coincidence. And he was just being good to her, while she on the other hand was being a stuck-up bitch. She not only needed to be more open-minded, but she also needed to relax around him and accept his friendship. "I feel so embarrassed telling you this right now. You can't tell anyone else about it though. This has to remain between the both of us," Tom said, turning to flash her what looked like an embarrassed smile. "It's not like I have anyone to tell anyway," she muttered as she glanced outside the window. If he liked his mystery lady enough to seek employment in her place of work, how come he had had sex with a random stranger? Why couldn't she seem to figure him out, anyway? Was he a good guy or a bad guy? Lucy wondered as she turned to look at him. She remembered the way he had been flirting with those girls earlier that morning, and then with the ladies at work that evening. He was definitely a bad boy. Maybe he just wanted a fling with the lady. "You don't have any more questions for me? Why are you so quiet?" Tom asked when she said nothing after some time and turned to spare her a glance. There was no way she could tell him what she was thinking anyway. Neither of them was to mention what had happened between them, so she couldn't even ask him why he had slept with her when he had someone else he was interested in. "What does she look like? What do you like about her? Have you run into her at the company since you started working there?" Lucy asked, not wanting to think about the things in her head. It was none of her business what he chose to do or who he chose to sleep with. "She looks very pretty. I don't know what I like about her yet, but that is what I intend to find out after I get the chance to be close to her. I've seen her twice at the company." "Really? And you still don't know her name or her department? Tell me what she looks like and maybe I can help you find out," Lucy offered. "No. I don't want you to know her," Tom said apologetically. "What? Why, that would be too awkward. Just help me get her, and maybe after that, I will introduce her to you," Tom suggested instead as he drove into the parking lot of a cafe bar. Tom reasoned that as long as he doesn't show her any lady, in particular, he could always tell Lucy the lady got married, quit her job, and moved to a different city or country, and that would be the end of his interest in this mystery lady. "But if you say you have seen her at the company twice, didn't she see you? Wouldn't it be natural to engage her in a conversation?" Lucy asked thoughtfully. "Well, I'm not sure she recognized me when I walked past her," Tom said with a shrug as he turned off the car's ignition. "Come on, how would anyone not recognize someone that looks like you?" Lucy asked incredulously. "Someone that looks like me?" Tom asked with a boyish grin which caught her off guard. Lucy blinked at him rapidly. "I mean, you look. That is. What I mean is that your face is distinct," Lucy rushed to explain, looking all flustered, and quickly got out of the car before Tom could say anything. Tom stifled the urge to chuckle as he got out of the car. He decided that there was no need to tease her further since she already looked so flustered. Do you think maybe she ignored me because she thinks I'm beneath her? I mean, we are not friends, and someone who works in a company like that has no reason to say hello to a mere plumber, right? Tom asked as they both headed for the cafe bar. Maybe if you had greeted her first, she would have responded, and then you could have gotten the chance to ask her out for a drink or something. Tell me something, would you have talked to your plumber if you ran into him at your place of work? Tom asked as he held the door open for her to get into the bar ahead of him. I don't see why not, Lucy said with a shrug as she looked around the bar. Assuming you were interested in men, do you think you could date your plumber? Tom asked, making her turn to look at him. No, she said, before turning away from him.